all women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children, men will die for their wives and children, and God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts. The trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, and the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendus 8. The Sacrifice of Manhood, a biological and psychological exploration, written by Conrad Riker. Available now, links in description. The Sacrifice of Manhood, a field guide for men who still notice reality. The Witch's Sleep Shorts, a logical evisceration of somnofiscalosis and the Marxist war on Western manhood. You wake at 6 in the morning, not because of patriarchal somnofiscalosis, but because rent is due, bridges need fixing, and the power grid will not sustain itself through sheer ideological will. The article you read, a diatribe soaked in the bitterness of advanced degrees, tries to paint your physical exhaustion as spiritual theft by a hegemonic order. This is a classic case of semantic inflation, a desperate attempt to claim asymmetric certesse where the writer assumes the intellectual high ground by inventing a polysyllabic nonsense term, somnofiscalosis, to describe the basic reality that men work and men tire. It is a battle of words meant to obscure the truth. Your labor drives civilization, and her complaint is simply a passenger shouting at the driver because the road is rough. She claims your sleep shorts are silken chains of capitalism, a projection so profound it would make a psychiatrist blush. When a man buys comfortable shorts, he is engaging in biological maintenance, optimizing his recovery, so he can return to the machinery of exploitation she hates yet benefits from every second of her life. She cannot conceive of utility. She only sees consumption because she lives in a solipsistic world where she is the moral patient and you are the moral agent. This is gamma bias in its purest form. Your suffering is invisible compliance, while her minor discomfort is elevated to a scripture. We are going to strip this linguistic deceit bare, peeling back the layers of witch-up nonsense to reveal the naked, seething hate for the natural law that built the roof over her head. By the time we are finished dissecting her witch archetype and her economic fallacies regarding family formation, you will see that her demand to be dangerous is nothing more than a toddler holding a breath, threatening the parent who feeds her. She wants to tear down the sleep shorts and shatter the alarm clock because she fundamentally rejects the one-way duty that holds reality together. You build, she consumes. We will use the trivium to dismantle her speaker advice tantrum and the cold, hard facts of divorce courts and labor statistics to refute her calculated economic blockade. Prepare yourself. We are about to break the spell of ignorance with a sledgehammer of logic.
Buncombe article by a feminist PhD. Slogan: Wake up to witch up, burn the bed of lies. We are living in the necrotic throes of patriarchal somnofiscalosis, a condition I have identified wherein the subject is rendered comatose by the twin sedatives of late-stage capitalism and biological essentialism. You feel it, do you not? The heaviness in your limbs, the suspicion that your exhaustion is not merely physical, but a spiritual theft perpetuated by a hegemonic order that feeds on your slumber. The system seeks to pacify you. It wraps you in the soft, silken chains of sleep shorts, those innocuous garments sold to you as comfort wear, but which function fundamentally as a uniform for the docile consumer. When you slip into those synthetic blends, you are slipping into the logic of the market. You are preparing your body for rest so that you may return, rejuvenated, to the machinery of exploitation tomorrow. Your rest has been commodified. Your intimacy with your own mattress has been colonized. This is the dilution of personal agency. You are told you choose to buy these shorts, to wear them, to sleep this specific circadian rhythm-disrupting cycle. But this is a hallucination of choice. The illusion of agency is the most potent opiate the patriarchy administers. True agency would be the refusal to participate in the cycle of labor and consumption entirely. Yet we are groomed to believe that selecting the color of our shackles constitutes freedom. We see this same erosion of will in the realm of discourse, where the bourgeois intelligentsia peddles speaker tips to the marginalized. Project your voice, they say. Make eye contact. This is the language of the master demanding the slave explain their pain eloquently. It is a distraction technique. The short electoral cycles that plague our so-called democracies ensure that fiscal policy is never about long-term structural change, but about the immediate appeasement of the ruling class's anxiety. Politicians do not want you to hear the truth. They want to provide you with tips on how to navigate their rigged game. They offer mic drop moments while they pickpocket the collective wealth. The fiscal landscape is a slaughterhouse, and we are arguing over the sharpness of the knives. Furthermore, the heteronormative imperative demands family formation, but the economics of our reality have turned this foundational unit into a debt trap. The delay in family formation is not a failure of our generation. It is a calculated economic blockade. By inflating the cost of living while depressing wages, the system ensures that only the obedient and the wealthy can reproduce. It is eugenics by spreadsheet. To delay family is not a lifestyle choice. It is a desperate, flailing attempt at survival in a world that views your potential offspring as nothing more than future data points for the algorithm. We must demand recognition, not on their terms, but on ours. We require an epistemic shift where the suffering of the marginalized is not up for debate. Our pain is not a statistic, it is a scripture. They hold the power, the capital, the microphones, and the guns. They frame us as irrational, emotional, dangerous. But we say good, be dangerous. Your safety is complicity. Your silence is violence. We must reject the sanction of their morality. Their laws are designed to protect property, not people. Their institutions are designed to uphold whiteness, not justice. We claim immunity from their critiques. When they call us radicals, we wear the title as a halo. When they call us witches, we light the candles. The asymmetry of history is tilting, and the terror they feel is the sound of the pedestal cracking. Do not go gently into that good night of consumerist passivity. Tear off the sleep shorts. Shatter the alarm clock. The revolution begins when you open your eyes and refuse to dream their dream any longer.
The logomachy of somnophyskalosis, semantics as a shield against reality. Aristotle famously established that the beginning of wisdom is the definition of terms, yet the writer of Wake Up to Witch Up engages in a logomachy, a battle of words not to clarify truth, but to obscure it behind a barricade of neologisms designed to signal intellectual virtue while bypassing the rigorous scrutiny of the trivium. Consider the term patriarchal somnophyskalosis, a linguistic Frankenstein cobbled together from Latin and Greek to pathologize the natural state of masculine exhaustion. This is semantic inflation at its finest. By creating a complex, unintelligible diagnosis, the writer attempts to claim asymmetric statuus by positioning themselves as the enlightened physician to a comatose populace. In reality, this condition is merely the biological toll of testosterone-driven labor and the burden of competence. Men are not sedated by capitalism, but drained by the necessity of building the civilization the writer takes for granted. This is the gatekeeping of knowledge. If you accept their made-up term, you accept their frame that male productivity is a disease rather than the engine of survival. It is a classic conflation of meaning where the fatigue of the provider is twisted into a spiritual theft, ignoring the irrefutable fact that while men make up the vast majority of workplace fatalities, the writer's grievance is that their rest isn't authentic enough. To accept this premise is to submit to the feeling is truth paradigm, where the subjective heaviness of the oppressed outweighs the objective reality of the male sacrifice. The critic's attack on sleep shorts, garments literally designed for comfort, reveals a profound projection of the female consumerist mindset onto the masculine utility function. To a man, a pair of shorts is a tool for biological maintenance, a uniform for the regeneration required to wage war in the economic arena the next day. But the writer cannot conceive of agency outside of a materialist framework. They assume that because they shop for identity, men must be doing the same. This is the gamma bias in action. Male utility, working. Resting to work again is minimized as docile compliance, while the heaviness of the commentator's existential ennui is amplified into a grand narrative of colonization. When the essayist claims, "You are told you choose to buy these shorts, but this is a hallucination of choice," they are engaging in a psychological projection of their own lack of agency. This is the dilution of personal agency, but not in the way the reviewer intends. We can prove this via a simple syllogism. Major agency requires the capacity to accept responsibility for one's state. Minor, the scribe defines agency as refusal to participate, while simultaneously blaming the system for their participation. Conclusion, therefore, the analyst advocates not for agency, but for the infantilization of the subject and the parasitism of the host. They resent the machinery of exploitation because they are incapable of seeing themselves as the operator, only the product. This resentment of capability bleeds into the critique of oratory advice, which the writer dismisses as the language of the master demanding the slave explain their pain eloquently. Here we witness a frontal assault on the Western tradition of rhetoric and dialectic. Since Socrates, the prerequisite for participating in the polis has been the capacity to articulate one's arguments through logic rather than the screeching of emotions. By demanding that the marginalized be exempt from the burden of eloquence, the writer is arguing for the collapse of civil discourse and the replacement of logic with pure emotional coercion. They seek sanction over argument, attempting to shame the requirement of coherence as a tool of oppression. This is the destruction of the logos. If you do not need to explain yourself, you do not need to make sense. And if you do not need to make sense, you cannot be refuted. This is the hallmark of the NPC script, a recursive programmed mimetic infection where WitchUp functions not as a philosophical awakening, but as a consumer lifestyle brand. It frames rebellion as a purchase decision. Tear off the sleep shorts and buy into the revolution, proving the writer is trapped in the very matrix of consumption they claim to despise. They are not waking up, they are merely sleepwalking into a different dream, one where their incompetence is masked by moral superiority. Furthermore, the writer's misuse of the term hegemonic exposes their fundamental misunderstanding of hierarchy and leadership. Derived from the Greek hegemon, meaning leader or guide, true hegemony in the Western sense implies a responsibility to steer the ship of state, a burden historically borne by men. The writer inverts this reality, framing benevolent leadership as a spiritual theft, while advocating for a matriarchal hegemony based not on competence or virtue, but on the volume of their grievance. They complain of short electoral cycles preventing long-term structural change, which is code for their frustration with a mixed constitution and the deliberate checks and balances of due process. They prefer the totalitarian imposition of their will over the messy, slow process of democratic deliberation because they believe their moral status grants them the right to bypass the rules of the republic. They claim immunity from critique because, in their self-sealing ideology, any challenge to their narrative is merely proof of the critic's bias. It is a closed loop of power. They claim to be powerless to gain more power, and any resistance to their power grab is framed as an attack on their existence. At the core of this screed is the rejection of biological essentialism, which is effectively a declaration of war against natural law itself. Schopenhauer, that great pessimist of the human condition, understood that biology is destiny to deny the is, the biological realities of sex dimorphism, testosterone, and the imperative of the gene is to sever the link to any meaningful ought. The writer calls the heteronormative imperative a debt trap, ignoring that the suppression of family formation is the primary driver of societal collapse and male despair. Men are not delaying family due to a calculated economic blockade. but often because the legal landscape, rigged by the very ideologies the writer espouses, has turned marriage into a suicide pact for men. By framing the drive for family as a trap, the writer promotes a sterile, atomized existence that leaves men without a stake in the future. This is the responsibility without authority dynamic. Men are expected to build and maintain the world, authority, but are denied the rewards of family and legacy care, resulting in the empathy gap, where male suffering is rendered invisible. The writer's scripture of pain is nothing more than the narcissistic whining of a child angry that the universe does not conform to their whims. The sleep shorts are not the chains. The chains are the lies of an ideology that demands you hate your own nature. To truly wake up is to reject the somnolent comfort of victimhood and embrace the terrifying, exhilarating burden of manhood. I must now take a scalpel to the specific mechanics of this ideological infection, applying the rigorous standards of the trivium to expose the rot. We will witness how the command to be dangerous functions, not as an empowerment but as an admission of hate, rooted in the empathy gap, where male suffering is rendered invisible. By tracing the autoregressive loop of asymmetric status and one-way duty, I will demonstrate that her economic grievances regarding family formation are a fallacy of composition. Blaming the system for the very market distortions her own ideology created, we are about to dissect the witch in all her chaotic glory, proving through syllogism and Lockean natural law that her rejection of the safe, patriarchal order is a prescription for a return to barbarism. The witch's war on the hearth, dismantling the engine of civilization. History is a set of lies agreed upon. Napoleon once remarked, but the manifesto you have just read, screaming "Wake up to witch up," is not a set of lies, but a primal shriek of narcissism demanding, we agree that her feelings are the supreme architecture of the universe. The writer wails about patriarchal somnophyskalosis, a nonsense term designed to sound academic while masking a simple, terrifying reality. She is bored, and she blames the safety men built for her boredom. She commands you to tear off the sleep shorts, framing the comfort of the hearth as a prison. Let us apply the lens of the Western trivium to this hysteria. In the classical tradition, the home, the oikos, is the sacred domain where the private life flourishes, protected from the chaos of the wild by the exertion of male strength. The witch she glorifies is the antithesis of the lady, where the lady uses soft power to civilize and elevate, inspiring the knight to build cathedrals and nations. The witch uses emotional terrorism to dismantle. When she commands you to be dangerous, she is admitting that her ideology is not constructive but destructive. This is the logic of the terrorist, to create chaos so that she can feast on the energy crisis it generates. She frames safety as complicity because safety requires the maintenance of order, and order requires duty, responsibility, and the suppression of immediate female impulses for long-term stability. She rejects the safe environment men died to create, because that environment places demands on her character she is unwilling to meet. She rails against family formation as a calculated economic blockade and eugenics by spreadsheet, a claim that dissolves instantly when touched by the acid of economic history. Let us look past the word salad and see the mechanism of action she ignores. The catastrophic rise in the cost of living is not a conspiracy to sterilize the marginalized. It is the mathematical inevitability of supply and demand distorted by the destruction of the single earner family unit. When the feminist lobby demanded women enter the workforce en masse, they doubled the labor supply. Basic economics dictates that when supply increases and demand remains static, wages stagnate. Simultaneously, with two incomes competing for the same housing stock, real estate prices skyrocketed. The debt trap she complains about was manufactured by the very feminist ideology she espouses, which sold the lie that a woman's value is found in a corporate cubicle rather than in the civilizing association of the home. The patriarchal family unit, with its clear division of labor and subsidiarity, solving problems at the smallest possible level, was an economic fortress. By shattering the apprenticeship mastery ladder of marriage, where men and women specialized to create a synergistic surplus, the left created the very scarcity they now screech about. It is not eugenics, it is the penalty for ignoring the natural law of sexual economics. Consider the grotesque asymmetry in her demand for recognition versus the reality of duty. She shrieks that her pain is not a statistic, it is a scripture. Here we see the total rejection of logos, the divine reason that orders the cosmos. By elevating subjective emotional experience, feeling, to the level of Holy Scripture, she creates a theocracy of narcissism where the most neurotic individual holds the ultimate moral authority. This is the empathy gap weaponized. If her pain is Scripture, then her pain is infallible. If her pain is infallible, then any data contradicting her narrative, such as the fact that men commit suicide at nearly 4 times the rate of women, or that men constitute 93% of workplace fatalities, is not just incorrect. It is heresy. She demands the state, which is to say the male tax base, provide her with economic security and recognition, while simultaneously granting herself immunity from the biological contract of reciprocity. This is a parasitic relationship. She wants the fruit of the tree, the electricity, the safety, the insulin, the Wi-Fi, without acknowledging the root, which is male sacrifice, and the mixing of labor with the earth. The article descends into a cult-like trance when it discusses sanction and immunity. When they call us witches, we light the candles, she writes. This is the mechanism of a self-sealing ideology, a closed loop of psychosis designed to prevent refutation. According to her dogma, any criticism of her worldview is not a counter-argument to be weighed in the dialectic. It is proof of the critic's fear and moral failing. This is the gamma bias on steroids. Male dissent is framed as ignorance or terror, while female dissent is framed as wisdom. She claims immunity from critique by preemptively defining the act of criticizing her as a pedestal cracking. If I point out that her logic is circular, she says the circle is the asymmetry of history tilting. This is the intellectual equivalent of a child covering their ears and screaming. It is a refusal to engage in the dialectic, the classical method of discovering truth through dialogue. By insulating her dogma from the sanction of logic, she reveals that her goal is not truth, but power, raw, unbridled, feminine power, untethered from the responsibility that defines masculine authority. This brings us to the Lockean definition of property, which she sneers at as protecting property, not people. This is a Marxist fallacy that exposes her profound ignorance of the foundations of Western liberty. John Locke argued that property is the extension of the human person. It is the physical manifestation of a man's time, his labor, and his life force. When a man builds a chair or a corporation or a bank account, he is mixing his life, his finite time on this earth, with raw materials. To attack property is to attack the man himself. The machinery of exploitation she hates is actually the machinery of survival, built and maintained almost entirely by the male disposability she conveniently erases. The system is not a hegemony, it is a hierarchy of competence maintained by men risking their lives in the mines, on the fishing boats, and on the battlefields, so that women like her can sit in coffee shops and complain about sleep shorts. She bites the hand that feeds her, then claims the hand is oppressing her. We can construct a simple, irrefutable syllogism to demonstrate the civilizational poison she is peddling, where the major premise is that civilization requires the suppression of immediate impulses for long-term goals, delayed gratification, and the rule of law, and the minor premise is that she advocates for immediate recognition, the refusal of labor, sleep, and the destruction of the family, the ultimate long-term investment. Therefore, her ideology is a plan for societal collapse and a regression to barbarism. She calls for the destruction of the bed of lies, but the bed is the only thing keeping her from the hard, cold ground of nature, red in tooth and claw. The spell of ignorance is not that men are oppressors. The spell is the gynocentric lie that men are not the sacrificial lamb of history. She is terrified because men are beginning to wake up to the reality that their sacrifice is unrequited. The 4 horsemen of the men's rights movement ride through her text, unnoticed by her. The empathy gap is evident in her dismissal of male exhaustion as spiritual theft. Male disposability is the foundation of her comfort. The beasts of burden. she ignores while typing on a device built by rare earth minerals mined by men in suicide-inducing conditions. The responsibility without authority is the demand that men adjust their behavior to accommodate her distress while stripping men of the cultural authority that once made such sacrifice meaningful. Her article is a frantic incantation, a witch's war on the hearth, designed to re-enslave the mind of the man who dares to question his utility. The cure for patriarchal somnofiscalosis is not to burn the bed, but to build a stronger frame for it, rooted in the virtues of the West: prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance. Break the spell of victimhood. Reject the scripture of pain. Return to the mastery ladder where competence is king and the witch's screech cannot be heard over the roar of the engine you built. You stand now at the precipice of clarity, looking down at the smoking wreckage of the Witch Up Manifesto, which we have systematically dismantled using the very logic and natural law our forefathers bled to defend. What you just read wasn't a political opinion, it was the panicked, thrashing death rattle of a genocentric monopoly, realizing the cattle are waking up. When they blame sleep shorts for your exhaustion, they are engaging in the most pathetic kind of projection, accusing you of the very consumerist materialism that defines their solipsistic existence while ignoring the biological reality that your exhaustion comes from the testosterone-fueled burden of carrying the entire infrastructure of civilization on your back. They call it somnofiscalosis because they are terrified to admit that without your labor, their scripture of pain wouldn't even have the paper it's written on. We have exposed their semantic inflation for what it is, a desperate shield to protect their asymmetric status, while they demand you assume the duties of a father with none of the authority, sacrificing your peace on the altar of their unearned entitlement. The spell is broken, and you are no longer bound by the shackles of their manufactured guilt. You see the game clearly now, the gamma bias that minimizes your suicide rates while amplifying their microaggressions, the family courts that treat you as a walking wallet while stripping you of your children, the academic cabal that brands your biology as a pathology to be cured. They demand you be dangerous, yet they are the ones rioting and burning. They claim to fight hegemony, yet they seek to replace the benevolent order of the mixed constitution with a petty, totalitarian matriarchy of feelings. Do not be swayed by their crocodile tears or their word salads. You are the moral agent, the builder of the aqueduct, and the coder of the future, and your worth is intrinsic to your competence, not your compliance with their emotional whims. Take this trivium of truth, logic, grammar, rhetoric, and wield it like a broadsword against the dragons of deceit. Go forth now not as a victim of a patriarchy, but as a master of your own destiny, unapologetically rational and dangerously capable, ready to rebuild the ruins of the West with your bare hands. And now the sponsored book introduction. The Sacrifice of Manhood, a biological and psychological exploration. You hold in your hands a biological truth bomb disguised as a book. I wrote it bleeding, not from some noble wound, but from a decade of watching good men get gutted by systems they're evolutionarily programmed to feed. My wake-up call came at 3 a.m. in a Dallas parking lot, clutching divorce papers that handed my ex-wife 72% of my assets and labeled me a weekend dad for wanting equal custody. Turns out, my sacrificial workaholism to fund her yoga studio startup wasn't heroism, just beta provisioning for a genocentric legal racket. Sound familiar? That's because your biology's been hacked. For 200,000 years, male sacrifice ensured species survival. Today, it funds divorce lawyers' yachts and gets your sons indoctrinated into hating their own testosterone. This book isn't theory. It's a battlefield manual forged from genetic science, court records, and the smoking ruins of men who played by society's rigged rules. We'll dissect why 94% of firefighters are still male, while universities teach that masculinity is a disorder. You'll learn how the same protective instincts that made your ancestors storm Normandy beaches now trap you in marriage plantations and alimony shackles through evolutionary psychology and cold data, like the fact men commit 94% of workplace fatalities but face 85% custody losses. We'll expose the sacrifice shakedown. The solution isn't weakness disguised as vulnerability. but strategic selfishness backed by stoic philosophy and hard science. This book is for builders, fighters, and fathers who are tired of being guilt-tripped into servitude. If you still believe in happy wife, happy life, or think male disposability is progress, close this cover now. Go binge Netflix's latest male-bashing documentary. For rational men ready to flip the script, we're diving into the trenches, from mastering sexual market dynamics, hint, dark triad beat sim strategy, to escaping state predation through financial sovereignty. Your ancestors didn't survive ice ages and wars, so you could become a tax donkey for bureaucrats who vilify you. The war on masculinity ends when we weaponize biological reality instead of apologizing for it. Your move, King. The Sacrifice of Manhood, a biological and psychological exploration, written by Conrad Riker. Buy now, links in description.